Morning. Welcome to Jackson County Historical Society's museum. My name's Terry Creegan. Around here, I'm better known as Captain Andrew W. Drips of the 9th Iowa Infantry Volunteers, which you can see I was one of the representatives that participated in muster on Maquoketa, and we're going to be doing that again this year, so look forward to seeing you in September. What we're going to talk about here today is we're going to talk about a war corner. Unfortunately, the United States has been in a variety of wars. Now, we're going to go all the way back to the Revolutionary War or the War of 1812. We're going to start pretty much at the First World War, okay? And we've got a lot of representation here. You can see a uniform here. This particular uniform was worn by an individual who was actually a prisoner of war. The olive drab uniform you see there was pretty much normal, and they didn't have what we call today ODs or fatigues. They just had this uniform. They fought in this uniform. That was their dress uniform. That's all they had. Their shoes were brown, and that goes to the saying, the old brown shoe days. If you notice here, that's an Army uniform, and the Army had both an Army and an Air Corps, but not the Air Corps that we think of in the World War II. In this case, it was a part of the Signal Corps, and it was a balloon corps. They would send a balloon up, way up into the, as far as they could go, usually several hundred feet on a cable. A guy would sit there, and he'd start reporting to the people down below on a field phone, which is what you see here. Now, a field phone is a sound-powered device. Just simply talking into it is what drives it, okay? So they would talk into that, and they would talk about the enemy's disposition. In other words, where are they? What are they doing? Are they moving? Are they staying put? Are they trying to attack? Are they setting up an artillery barrage? Whatever they can find out, they would talk down, and then the ground force would then be able to do whatever they needed to do to counteract that. This uniform here is the Navy. This particular uniform is one of Dwight Tipple. He served in World War I as an underwater demolitions expert. Wasn't something we did a lot of in World War I because most of it was fought on the continent of Europe. But that doesn't mean that demolitions experts in ports and other areas weren't important to maintain control so that we could continue to get supplies over there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a field force. You've heard the term, an army survives on its stomach. Well, that's more true than you know. But it's not just food, it's ammunition. It's all the fuels that you need for your vehicles. Although there weren't a lot of vehicles yet in World War I, back then it was pretty much all horse-drawn. But we had locomotives. As a matter of fact, we had whole teams, many of them from Wisconsin and Minnesota, that were lumberjacks that when they went over to France, they set up lumber mills. Because as you built your fortifications, which were in those days mostly trenches, you still had to line the trenches with some sort of support so that they wouldn't crumble and fall apart. Okay? So they would mill the lumber. They also milled lumber for railroads, because as you brought items into the ports of France, you then had to transport them all the way to the front. And the front was changing almost constantly. So they had to be prepared to get that item there. The challenge we have is that the French railroad gauge, meaning the width of the tracks, is different than American. So we would go over there, we brought American locomotives over to take the product from the port to a central location where it was then distributed by French railway up to the front. So it was a combination of work together. In any case, that's the Navy uniform. He happens to be a petty officer first class. That would be the first non-commissioned officer grade in the Navy. As you can see, there's a variety of things here. We talked about the food. The Army works on its stomach. This is an Army field ration, or what we called a K ration. They're not as nice as the stuff we got today, trust me. K rations consisted of, I don't know if you can see, but there's a can of chopped pork and egg yolk right there. You got a P38. I wish I had one to show you. I don't see one here. But essentially it was a can opener, real small can opener that you carry on your keychain or more likely with your dog tags. You would pull it out and you would stick the point into it and you work your way around the can. The other alternative was to use a bayonet, and you would pry it up with your bayonet to get it open, and then you would eat it, sometimes with your bayonet, sometimes with your bare hands. You used, or a stick, you'd use whatever you could. But the K ration comprised of several parts. The main entree, which in this case is a breakfast. Usually there were crackers in there. Now, the crackers here weren't much of an improvement over the Civil War. They were pretty dry and pretty hard. You kind of had to suck on them for a while before you could even bite them, because it would break your teeth. And back then, teeth hygiene wasn't the best. So it wasn't something you wanted to risk out there, because there weren't a lot of dentists to take care of you if you did something wrong. But there'd also be some other amendments in there, just things for you to nibble on. Instant coffee, things like that. They didn't have Kool-Aid, they didn't have any of that stuff back then. But they also had a couple of unique items that started with the K rations, and one was taking care of a human necessity. Well, we all know what you use a Sears catalog for, but you can't pack a whole Sears catalog in a K ration. So right over here next to the eggs is a packet of toilet paper, so that you had something to use when you went out to relieve yourself. Not all the food is good cold. It's not good when it's warm, but it's really bad when it's cold. So they had a thing called a cook stove, and it was basically it was a sterno stove. You'd have two sternos that would get put in there. You'd light them, and you put your can or your pot, because what you would do is usually several guys would get together, a squad, and they would combine their meals into one pan, and they'd cook it, and then they'd easy out of that or divvy it back up again once it was hot. So it was pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but it was easy to deal with in the field. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff, and I'm not going to cover everything because we want you to come in and explore for yourself. So if you look here, you'll see not just things from the military like a footlocker, and a footlocker is a chest that you keep everything. Your entire life is in that footlocker, everything. But you would actually then, you've got things like the victory pins that people would wear, or the victory flag that people would wear, or in the case of the Gold Star, which when hung up meant that one of your family members had passed away. So we also have up here from the China War, the China-Burma, India War. So we've got a variety of things from that period of time. You need to come in and take a look at them. I think you'll find them fun. All right, so we're continuing with World War I. Here, when you notice, here's a Marine uniform versus an Army uniform. A little bit different color. Most significantly, you probably can only see the corner, but that patch is a red patch. It's a square, and it has the Marine Corps globe and anchors on it. So that's how you know it was a Marine. Back in World War I, they didn't wear the helmets that we see today. Matter of fact, they don't wear the helmets that we wore in World War II. They wore the British-style helmet, which was used primarily because it could stamp itself out of one piece of sheet metal. So it was very easy to make. Bugles, well, we've been using bugles forever. Now, we did use them in the Revolutionary War, but around the 1850s, we started using those. The Army used them to basically tell people that certain information. Before that, they used flags. They would put a flag up if they wanted a certain unit to do a certain thing. They put another flag up if they wanted another unit to do it. But by use of bugle, the sound would carry farther, and it was easier for people to hear. They didn't have to stop and look around at the flag. They could actually hear it. They call them to breakfast, tell them to get up in the morning, tell them to go to sleep at night, and all kinds of things in between. You'll see dog tags. Those little dog tags there, those little round ones on leather straps, that's the kind of dog tag they used in World War I. Okay? Very, very different than what we know today. Field glasses, officer's cap. That's a flight cap up there that they would use if they were working up in the balloons or if they were flying aircraft. So down here is a lot of equipment, everything from entrenching tools, which is a shovel, by the way, to canteens, to the cot they would sleep on, the blankets. And here's a picture of Camp Dodge, back there where everybody was being trained for World War I. So the fun would be to come in here and take a look at each of the items, because there's descriptions on them so you can find out what they are and what they mean. And if you need more information, all you have to do is ask one of us here at the museum, and we're more than happy to fill you in. Hi, welcome again. Well, we're transitioning from the Civil War into a period before the Civil War, which would be the Spanish-American War. If you notice, there's some similarities to that uniform as the uniform I'm wearing. The yellow stripe that's on the side signifies cavalry. I'm wearing a blue stripe, and I have blue in here. That means infantry. So as you move into the Spanish-American War, you'll notice they started changing the uniform, including the cap, and then some of the medals and stuff like that. This was Isaac Taylor. It's his uniform. So these are all people, these uniforms and stuff are all from Jackson County, all throughout Jackson County. These are donated by members of Jackson County for posterity. So it's really great to see. And as we slide down a little bit further, we start rolling into the Civil War. Now, the Civil War is kind of our pride and joy. Obviously, me being Captain Drips and us having our muster on the Maquoketa in September now, second weekend in September, you're going to see, again, the uniforms starting to evolve. That cap is after what we call the Kevy cap, which is the cap you see in most Civil War uniforms, the flat one. I'm wearing a Hardy hat. It's a little different. It's more of a dress cap. But you can see flintlocks up there, powder horns, there's medals, there's drums that we use, because when you marched in the military back then, there was always a drummer drumming to help everybody stay in cadence. Well, why is that important? Well, in the military, we have a thing called route step. That's just everybody kind of shuffling along. But that means everybody tends to slow down. By marching, you can move masses of people from one place to another in a much shorter period of time. The drums keep everybody in step so they can keep moving at the right pace so we can get there when you want to or need to be there. You'll see uniforms here. This is a Civil War uniform. Robert Nelson Woods, he's a private in the 2nd Iowa Cavalry. That's his uniform there. You can see hardtack, all kinds of stuff. These are examples of different types of either musket balls, well, not musket balls. These would be small cannonballs, or it could be larger cannonballs, mortar shells, okay? One is designed to go like this, the other one's designed to go like this. That's the mortar. But you'll also see something right here that's called shot. If you've got a bunch of people coming at you and you have no way to stop them, you use shot. And if you notice, it's a bunch of small balls wrapped around a piece of wire, with a piece of wire wrapped around it, and caps on either end. So when it goes fired out of the canister, out of there, and that canister is another example or term for it, when they shoot the canister out, all these balls scatter. It's like a gigantic shotgun. Think of a shotgun that has a barrel this big. So it can get pretty nasty. Hi, welcome back. We're going to finish with our Civil War section. One of the things that the museum is most proud of is our Civil War section. As you saw, there was a considerable bit of it in the previous section, but this is about something specific. I'm Captain Andrew W. Drips, and we actually have all the information having to do with the Drips sword, and in fact, it's actually kept at the National Battlefield Monument in Pea Ridge, Arkansas. I was the first commander of Company A, the 9th Iowa Infantry Volunteers. So we fought at Pea Ridge. That was our first major battle. I died there, unfortunately, but that's okay because Lieutenant Kelsey, Florilla M. Kelsey, took my place. He was my second in command, and he led the company through the battles of Vicksburg, where he died, and another officer took place. Then our company and our brigade literally led Sherman's March to the Sea. So we did have our place in history. But you can see a lot of information about who was there, the flags. This is the 9th Iowa Infantry Volunteers battle flag, which is in the state capitol here in Iowa. And you can see a lot of other information. And this actually is the Kelsey sword. So Lieutenant Kelsey, this is his actual sword. So come on, you can see the engravings and the information that talks about it right here. Before I leave, I want to show you one more thing. Welcome back. Okay, we got one more little thing to mention. I want you to call your attention to this beautiful weapon. Walnut handles, blued barrel and everything, brass frame, beautiful. It's an Army 1860 Colt 44 black powder, what they call ball and shot. There's an extra cylinder, and it comes in this extremely beautiful case. It's hinged at the bottom, so you can open it up. If it's mounted to the wall, you can open it up and lay it down, not have to hold the cover, and retrieve the weapon. But it also means that you won't have to be around dusting it all the time to keep it clean. This weapon's legitimate. I mean, you can go deer hunting with this. This is an actual weapon. So it is a replica. It's not one from the Civil War. That would be way too expensive. But you too can have this. We're selling tickets for $10 a piece, 3 for $20. So for $20, you get 3 shots at winning this beautiful weapon. We gave away a Navy Colt last year. This is the Army Colt this year. Thought we'd give the Army a chance as well, okay? So, just a reminder, this is to support the muster on Maquoketa. That's coming up in September. Watch out for it. Come and join us. Come in, while you're here for the muster on Maquoketa, by the way, it's free to come into the museum. So you can come in and check all this out while you're here learning about the Civil War and seeing what's going on. Have a good day. I'm glad you stopped to see us. Jackson County wants to say thank you.